Hey there, and welcome to video number 3 in this little series that we're doing this week called Remix in 26. And the whole idea is that for you to see some changes or some improvements or to grow in 2026, we don't need to wait till January the 1st to get started. I always take the last 8 weeks of any year and begin to plan. And we're going to talk about that today, exactly some of the things that I do when I'm planning for the coming year, when I'm trying to set my course. And thanks to someone who watched yesterday's video, I got a note that basically said, hey man, I really appreciate you for putting that video out and for sharing some of the things that you shared. It's going to take me a few days to process this. So could you, for the next video, could you do something just a little more concrete, something a little more down to earth so that I could just do some stuff while I process all these other things you said? So that really fueled what we're talking about today. And what we're talking about today, this isn't some revolutionary or unique idea that I came up with. This really is pretty standard fare for any kind of self-development, self-improvement, any kind of learning framework that you may use. This is used by a ton of people. There's a ton of research and there's a ton of evidence-based case studies that really go with what I'm going to share you today, that really help give you some confidence to know that the stuff I'm going to share with you is actionable. It's things you can start doing today. It's things that work. So in the first video we talked about, is the music business dead? I don't believe it is. Anyone that wants to be a musician or an audio engineer or a music producer to work in this creative industry, I think there's a place for you. It's a matter of kind of get in where you fit in, really, more than anything. And if you're willing to, like I said in the video yesterday, if you're willing to do the work that it's going to take, have the right steps to work them in the right order, and that you're going to be patient enough and committed enough to give this enough time, then I think that anybody could build a career in this business. Now, the thing that you need is the stuff that we're going to talk about today. So to give you an idea of where we're going, I'm going to tell you about a student I had on Monday, a drum student that came in, has been studying with me for a couple of months. And so we had a pretty large amount of content that we've gone over the last couple of months, 2 or 3 months. And so when the student came in, he said, hey, Brian, can we take this lesson for you to take all of this stuff that we've talked about and give it some structure? Because the thing that he was struggling with was knowing how to take all this information and sort of systematically, step 1, step 2, step 3, work through all of the information and really see the most benefit from the things that we have been talking about. And so what that student was asking for was a structure or a framework. And our brain works best on structure. I know people that are artistic want to just kind of throw stuff around the room and just keep their heads in the clouds. But really and truly, we're at our most productive and we can get the most out of our time, our effort, and our energy if we have some kind of structure, some kind of framework, something that we can pin all of these things onto, so that we can work systematically. And in some cases, it helps to take out the emotional component to doing the things that you need to do to be successful. So I'm going to share with that student what I did. I actually put together a 30-minute framework that went step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, right through what that student should be practicing down to the exact amount of time. And I ended up making 2 different 30-minute plans that because our brain, it really thrives on novelty. I showed the student 2 different sides of each one of these steps. On day 1, work this side of the idea, or this side of the exercise. Day 2, work this other side. And so you've got some novelty. You really have 2 different courses of action that you can alternate and keep this stuff interesting and fresh. And in the case of this student, if he wanted to practice more than 30 minutes in a session, he could just double the time on everything and have an entire hour. So we're going to do something similar, and I'm going to show you this framework, and it's a 4-step process that you can begin to work through today. This is the sort of thing when I'm working with a student or working with a coaching client, this is one of the first things that I encourage them to do. And this framework is going to be really easy for you to remember. We just got to remember 4 letters. G, R, O, and W. Grow. That's what we're trying to do when we're remixing in 26. We're really trying to grow. We're trying to move beyond who we are and what we do right now, and grow and expand and see what's possible in the coming year. So we're going to take each one of these steps, this little framework, and I'm going to show you a process that you can start doing today to begin getting some traction and getting some idea where you're headed for 26. So the first one, the G. The G is going to stand for goal. And you could put an S on this if you'd like, goals. Because in some cases, I encourage people to at least have a couple of goals that you're working on. But don't do more than 2 or 3 goals, because you can very easily fatigue yourself from having too much to focus on and too many action steps to do in any given day. So generally I'll tell a coaching client or a student, like, have 1, 2, or 3 primary objectives. You know, in the case of your career goals, what are the objectives that you're trying to achieve with your career? And I use the same framework even as I'm dealing with clients. What are my goals for this conversation? What are my goals for this interaction? It's just a very quick checklist that I can put together as I go into an interaction with somebody, so that I make sure that by the time we come out of that interaction, that we see some progress and we have a productive interaction with each other. In this case, we're talking about your career. So whether you want to be a full-time working musician, a full-time audio engineer, or a music producer, or music educator. We'll throw the 4th one in there too, because it's not just enough to try and teach a bunch of drum lessons. It's not even enough just to go to college for music school. You really need to define what it is you're trying to do with your career as a music educator. So we'll throw that 4th one in. As someone who's been a music educator now for 35 years at this point, if I do the math on that, I think it's 35 years. Yeah, it's important that you define your goals. Now, the important thing here is you really don't just want to have your head in the clouds. Like, if you've got a goal like, I want to be a rock star, which I've heard that before from several students. I've heard that from friends, from people I've come up with over the years. If you want to make $100,000 next year, like, that sounds like a very specific goal, but it's not. All of your goals need to follow. This is sort of a framework inside of this framework. We want to make sure you've probably seen this before. This, again, not a new idea. In fact, let's add a color to this. Let's make this interesting. Hopefully I didn't make a mess. Anyway, I want you to think about the acronym for SMART. We want to make sure that every one of our goals meet 5 criteria. We want to make sure that they're specific, incredibly specific. Now, I show students, I show some of my coaching clients, I show them where the wiggle room can be when it comes to being specific, because sometimes you can be a little too specific. Like, I want to play drums with Sting. Good luck with that. because right now he's already got a drummer, and it won't meet the rest of these if that's as specific as you're getting. So specific, and there's a very special kind of specificity that you need to get to, and the rest of these letters will help. We want to make sure that when we're being specific, that we're also creating a goal that's measurable. Now, if saying that I want to make $100,000 in a year, it's measurable, but it's not very specific. Like, how do you want to make $100,000 in the next year? There's a lot of different ways to do that, and none of them may be in the music business at all. The A in SMART brings us to our next qualifier, which is it attainable? Is it, if you've never made $1 in the music business, is it really possible for you to make $100,000 next year? Making any money in the music business as a working musician, a professional audio engineer, a music producer, or even an educator, making a living in this industry is not the easiest thing in the world to do. There's a lot of other ways, especially if your goal is $100,000. As someone who's made $100,000 in a year, I can tell you there's a lot easier ways to make that. So you want to make sure that this is an attainable goal. And so we want specific, we want measurable, we want attainable. If you've never made $1 in this industry, it's not necessarily the R, which is realistic, that in the next year that you're going to be able to jump that far forward. So we want to make sure we're specific and that it's measurable, that it is attainable, and in being attainable, we want to be very realistic. Now, for just a second here with attainable and realistic, if you want to set the goal of I want to make $100 next year with my creativity, with my music, with my skills as a musician, audio engineer, or music producer, that's attainable and it's realistic. But you know what? It's not very inspiring. So maybe we throw an I out here, smarty. You want it to be inspiring. But the last one is time-based. You want to make sure that your goals are time-bound, that you have a time in which you want to get this done. So with any of your goals, you need to be realistic about the thing you're trying to do, but also realistic about the time you're giving yourself to do that. If you're trying to go from not having a career in the music industry at all to having a full-time career inside of a year, you've made that time bound, but is it realistic and attainable? It's measurable, it's specific. Is it attainable? Is it realistic? You want to really weigh these things, and that's one of the great things that a coach is able to do for you, and not just any kind of coach. And that's the other part of this is, if you wanted to sit with some kind of success coach or some kind of self-development coach that knows nothing about the music industry at all, you may set up a bunch of goals that seem like very smart goals, and that coach may be encouraging you, but if they don't know anything about this industry, they may not have any clue if those goals meet all 5 of those criteria. I have an accountant that does my taxes, and I've had different kinds of accountants over the years that have done my taxes, and at a certain point in my career, I realized that I was doing myself a disservice in whatever amount of money I was spending on just a general accountant that was, 10 minutes down the road. And I decided to level that part of my career up by getting an accountant that actually worked with people in the music industry. 90% of their clients are musicians, engineers, music producers, people that are in this industry. And the other clients they have are in different capacities and companies that are ancillary to the music business. So, I got an accountant. I got someone in my corner who knew this industry really well. And there's a lot of things that they were able to advise me of that a regular accountant that I just found 10 minutes down the road would have no clue. And that's something very important when you're looking for someone to be your mentor, to be your coach, to be your teacher. You need somebody that's doing this, that has done it for a long time and that has been successful doing these things. So those are goals. And we want to make sure that we have those 5 qualifiers on the goals that we set. Now, the next thing that I send a student into is the next step, which is the R of this acronym, and that's reality. We get really very honest when we examine your present situation. Where are you right this moment? What's happened to you before in the last year, the last 5 years, the last 10 years? Did you go to college and get a degree for this stuff? Have you not gone to college and gotten a degree for this stuff? Like, what are the realities of your present situation? When we're talking about where are you now, we may not even be just talking about, that metaphorical where are you. We may be talking about your locale. For me, I'll just give you my story, my journey. At a certain point in my early 20s, I was living in Mississippi in a town that I was working as much as you could possibly work as a musician. Sometimes the gigs, I'd have 2 gigs in a month. Other times I'd have 20 gigs in a month. And they all seemed to be around a certain price point that wasn't necessarily sustainable for a career unless I didn't need very much money to live. We'll just put it that way. But when I was looking at the reality of my situation and trying to create a full-time career as a musician, an audio engineer, and a music producer, and a music educator, one of the realities that I very quickly came to was that I was going to have to relocate to a much larger metropolitan area that had a much bigger, richer, more vibrant music scene. Because without that, I could continue to beat my head against the wall and try and make opportunities for myself. But it was going to be a lot easier and a lot more immediate for me to be able to, if I would just relocate and go somewhere that had the infrastructure, that had the scene, that had the people, that had the opportunities. So that was one of the things that I had to identify in my reality. I couldn't stay where I was. Now, we're going to talk about some other things later, so I'm going to put a pin in that idea because I want you to know what the next part of that thinking was. Hang on, we're going to put a pin in that. So you want to identify what are your challenges, what obstacles are currently in your way. I'm sort of alluding to what's going to happen here in O for a second. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to identify your starting point for whatever this list of goals is that you have. You've got to have somewhere to start from. And in some cases, like for me, I'd gone to college and I'd studied nursing and I'd also studied music, but there was a lot more that I needed to learn about my instrument. There was a lot more that I needed to learn about what it's like to play on a professional gig or to actually be in a professional recording studio on a professional recording session. There were so many things I didn't know. And so I had to identify that I was at this particular starting point. And I was missing a ton of information that I needed to be able to function as a working professional. So that was my reality. That was me getting very honest with myself. And it's a sobering thought to want something like a full-time professional career in an industry and have to tell yourself, I'm not good enough. Just plain not good enough. And so that led me to the next step, which is the O in this little formula. And that is my options. And with my options, what you want to try and do with your options is you want to brainstorm. What are all the possible ways that you could move forward toward meeting these goals? walls. And when you're brainstorming this stuff, I don't want you to have your critical mind engaged at all. I want you to throw as much at the wall as you can. Any idea is a good idea at this point in the process. Don't prejudge any of your ideas. Just put them on a page. Get the pen out, get the paper out, and just write as many of these possible ways that you could move forward. What are your options for you as a working musician, a working audio engineer, a working professional music producer? And if you come up with 5, great. If you come up with 50, even better. If you can come up with 250, even better. Again, we're not going to prejudge any of this stuff. We're just trying to look at all the possible ways that we can move forward. Now, at this point, once you start to look at those possible ways, that's again when a coach or mentor is great, because if you've come up with 50 possibilities, I can guarantee you that probably 45 of them suck. They're going to be awful. In some cases, I had this conversation with a guy last week that I was mentoring, and he had some goals about this kind of band that he was trying to put together. And there's one particular, I don't want to be too specific, because there's one particular aspect of the kind of band that he wanted to put together that required working with some musicians types of musicians he'd never worked with. Horn players. We'll say horn players. And there's a process for working with horn players that's very different than working with rhythm section guys. And so one of the possibilities for him to move forward was just not how things work in this industry. It's just not how we do things, especially at a professional level. And I had to be honest with him. I was like, man, this is a way that you can move forward, but I will guarantee you that all it is going to contain for you is frustration, and you're going to waste time. And I don't know about you, but time for me is a finite resource. The less I can waste that time, the more I've got to put to things that are productive. And so a coach or a mentor is great for helping you to take all of those possible things, those different ways you can move forward, those different ways you could achieve your goals, and really look at them and help you to consider, are these even realistic? Is this how this business works? Is this even possible to do? And then once you get that list whittled down, then you can start to look at the pros and the cons of each one of these options. What are the advantages and the disadvantages of each one of those choices? For me, having to move to a completely different town in a completely different state that was 300 miles away from my friends and my family and all my support system, I had to look at that and go, well, the advantage or the pro in this situation is that I'm moving to a town that has a ton of possibility, like 100x more possibilities and opportunities than I can experience where I'm living. That was one of the advantages of moving to a larger metropolitan area. One of the huge disadvantages was I was going to leave everyone that I knew. I had to be okay with not having any support system at first in the way of friends, family, any of that stuff. And that's a huge decision to make. But that led to some other solutions inside of this. And we'll talk about that in a second. I'm going to put a pin in that one too. So I'm looking at my options, and I'm really trying to see which one of these give me the greatest upside and the least amount of downside. Or, and there's another way that we can think about this O, is our obstacles. Is there anything that's getting in the way of me being able to follow through on any of these options? for me, I didn't, even though I'd been to college and had learned a lot in that music program, there was still a lot of information I didn't have. There are a lot of skills I didn't have. My reading was okay, but it wasn't great. My knowledge of styles was okay, but it wasn't great. I couldn't just walk and play almost any gig. There was just a very small subset of things that I was qualified for. That was an obstacle. And, you know, it's an obstacle that it could have kept me where I was. I could have just said, you know what, there's so much I need to know. I'm so far behind at 22 years old that this isn't possible. No. When I started to look at those obstacles, that let me know that there was a way forward for me, which brings us to our W, which is our will, our way forward. In this case, as I started to look at any of my obstacles, I started seeing, you know what? I've got the will to commit to specific actions that I'm going to need to do to eliminate any of my obstacles, to help bolster any of these options that look favorable but have some pretty large downsides. In that case, moving to Atlanta, you know, I had to decide that I was going to continue to go to school for at least another year and specifically studying music. I mean, getting obsessive as much as 8 to 16 hours a day between school and practice. Was that an option? And as I was setting my goals, I found out that would be an option. If I made certain choices, if I put certain things in place, I could take a year and just obsessively study and try and amass all that knowledge that I needed and some of the experience that I didn't have to help move me towards the goals that I had as far as becoming a professional musician. And so, do you have the will? Do you have the will to sit and practice for 3 hours a day or 5 hours a day? Or in my case, there were some days I'd practice 8 hours a day. That first year that I moved to Atlanta? Do I have the will, the fortitude to undertake that? And again, it was a time limited activity. I knew that something like that, as big a project as that was, I was going to take a year, and that was it. For a year, I'm going to do the thing that I've never had an opportunity to do, which is just obsessively study all of the things that I needed to study and practice all the things I needed to practice to give me the knowledge and the experience to help begin a full-time career in this business. So I had the will to do it. Did I have the will? Do you have the will if you need to move all the way across the country? If the kind of things that you want to do, they're doing those 3,000 miles away, do you have the will and the fortitude to do all the things that it's going to take to actually follow through on that option? Again, we keep, at a certain point with this G.R.O.W. process, we start to kind of go back and we go through some of these steps. When I decide maybe I do have the will, is it real that I'm going to actually be able to do whatever I need to do to move myself 3,000 miles away? Would you do that? And if you wouldn't, okay, is there another option? If you have the will and that you know that one of your action steps is moving to a major metropolitan area that has the support for the kind of career you're trying to build, is there a way forward for you? Do you have the will to do the steps, work through those steps it's going to take to make sure that you can reach that particular goal that you have for yourself? And while we're talking about this will and this way forward, understand that one of the things that may be missing for you if you haven't already done this, if you've gone through these first 3 steps and you haven't already enlisted the help of a coach, a mentor, or a teacher, then you're probably only being accountable to yourself. Accountability is huge because once you've come up with these goals and you've made these assessments and you've looked at these different options, if you're not completely overwhelmed and you've decided you're going to move forward, when are you going to start? What are the actions you're going to take tomorrow? What is the feedback that you're getting, and how are you going to analyze that feedback? This is when you bring in a coach, a mentor, a teacher, someone, preferably someone who's in that industry, that will be able to help you with an accountability to make sure that you stay on task, that you stay on schedule, that you put in the right kind of work and you're getting the right kind of results. Or if you get results that you didn't expect, maybe you get a negative result or a negative feedback from an action that you take, to help you work through what does that feedback mean and how do I move forward? What is my next action step given the feedback that I've gotten? That's what a coach or a mentor or a teacher is great for. So in saying all this and getting to that point, the whole point of these videos that I'm putting up for you this week, this Remix in 26 that we're going on together, is that I would love to be your mentor. I would love to be your coach. And I've got 3 slots that are open currently, and I would love to put you in one of those slots and help you be that accountability that you need, be that sounding board, be that ear that you're going to need, and also that discerning person who already has plenty of experience in this industry that can help you sidestep the pitfalls and maybe show you a faster path to some of the goals that you have. Sometimes just by not stepping in all the wrong things, the wrong hole, by walking down the clear path, you can just save time. There's a lot of ways that you can sidestep a lot of the nonsense that people go through trying to build a career in this industry. There's plenty of ways that you could do it if you have someone that's already walked that path before you. So if you're interested in that, I've got those 3 slots open that I would love to get filled in the next week or two, because we need to get on this. I mean, that if you're going to be ready for January the 1st, you need to get started with me tomorrow. Today. So you can email me, brian@brianstevens.com. You can go to my website, brianstevens.com. Just use the contact form there and send me a note. If you're seeing this on any kind of other social media, maybe someone shared this video and you're seeing it, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. I'm easy to find on any of the social media. Just shoot me a DM and say, hey, Brian, I watched your video. I need this. I need someone who can coach me toward what I want for myself, which is a full-time career as a working musician, professional musician, working professional audio engineer, or working professional music producer. So that's all I've got for you in today's video. There'll be another one tomorrow. Don't know what we're talking about yet, but it will probably piggyback off this. So take this G.R.O.W framework and get a pen and get some paper and start to work through this. And if you're interested, I would love to spend some time with you to see what you've done so that we can parse through all the things that you've written down and all the options that you've looked at, all the obstacles you need to overcome. And I would love to help you with that. So that's all I got for you today. Until next time, be awesome to yourself. Be extra awesome to everybody that you meet today. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you. Thanks so much.